Hello and welcome to this week's BuzzLine, the show all about Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket Athletics with Jonathan Leifheit, the publisher of GoJackets.com. I'm your host, John Rawl. And Jonathan, what is the good word?
Well, to hell with Georgia, just like it always is.
Oh, very good. Just in case you're tuning in, hey, we do believe in THWG. We're going to talk Georgia Tech's open week as the Jackets did not play this last weekend, which they've had some maneuvering on their schedule here in 2017. This open week did happen at the scheduled time, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Initially, this was supposed to be an open week leading into a Thursday night game with Miami. Hurricane Irma had other plans, so Florida State and Miami had to move their game to another date. Both of them, ironically, had an open date on the 7th. So they moved it to the 7th and decided rather than force Miami to play Georgia Tech on a short week with Georgia Tech having an off week, we'll just make it a regular game week and move it to Saturday. So all in all, I think it was a fair, equitable output, and so now we got them on Saturday.
All right. Well, we'll talk in detail about this upcoming game with the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes riding high, undefeated, had a big win against FSU this past weekend. Mr. Blackman is the quarterback.
Yep.
And welcome back to BuzzLine, the show all about tech sports, alongside Jonathan Leifheit of GoJackets.com. I'm John Rawl, and we want to remind you that Buffalo's Cafe, which is where we're broadcasting, we're at the Cumming location, that Buffalo's Cafe has all-you-can-eat wings every Monday and Wednesday for only $14.99. If you like chicken, as most people do, and
Who doesn't like chicken?
You like the kind of wings originally from Buffalo, New York, then Buffalo's Cafe, which is the right name for a place that's going to serve chicken wings. So, Jonathan, we had a luxury of not having a game this past weekend, and hopefully your day on Saturday was well spent.
Well, of course it was. I sat back. I watched a few games. Of particular interest to me, obviously, was the Florida State-Miami game, so I did watch that. Really good game to watch, and especially with the Hurricanes being our next opponent, it was good to kind of get a preview of them and get some idea what was going on there.
Now, that game was somewhat important in that series between the Canes and the Noles because, am I right, that Florida State had won 7 in a row?
7 in a row.
Okay.
The last time Miami won, I believe, was 2009. I believe that, or that's when it started. I'm not sure which it was, but it had been 7 in a row, and this would have been 8 had Florida State been able to hold on that last minute or so.
Okay. So what did you think about Miami?
One thing I noticed, their passing game, they got some great receivers. Barrios is going to be quite a handle on our secondary. Their offensive line is very big, so we'll have our load up front, and their linebackers are very quick, very fast. I did see some vulnerabilities up the gut, which this year for Georgia Tech, that's been a good thing. It seemed like when Florida State ran between the tackles, they got some success. And I think that Rozier can be, their quarterback can be rattled if you get some pressure on him. But that's going to be a tough thing to do with that offensive line they have.
Yeah, you talked about linebackers, and I want to go ahead right off the bat and give some praise to my fellow Citadel graduate. D. Delaney is number 3 for the Miami Hurricanes. Now, he played for 3 years in the option offense at the Citadel and faced off against the option every day in practice. And this guy graduated, and not often do you see a player going from FCS to FBS, and that's what's happened. He got recruited to come to Miami after he had one more year of eligibility left at the Citadel and decided, you know what, Miami's wanting me to come be a starter. And he had an interception in the game against FSU. Got their crazy gold chain thing they're wearing now.
That turnover chain.
Yeah,
yes.
He got to wear it, and he's doing a great job. So I only bring that up to say here's a guy who has had a lot of experience facing off against an option offense. D. Delaney, number 3, and he is a senior down there in his 1 year of playing for the Canes. Other than that, I believe most of their defense is pretty young.
Yeah, fairly young. Shaq Quarterman, who is their middle linebacker, gave Georgia Tech some fits last year. He's a sophomore, played last year. A number of their other players, they have a number of they're very young up the gut there. So they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. They're already very good. and just wait. They're going to get better.
Yeah, well, this is going to be a very big game for both teams. Do you think they'll actually sell the place out?
Not a chance. Not a chance in heck. No.
What is their problem down there?
Well, I mean, they have a rather – it's a private school, so let's go first there. So they have a smaller private school. They have a campus, a stadium that's way away from campus, so it's harder to get the students there. And so, and basically when the fans do show up, it's only for the big games. So, they have a lot of what I'll call bandwagon fans that show up, and they'll show up for the big games, but, their fans don't necessarily consider Georgia Tech a big game. And so outside of Florida State, Notre Dame, and maybe a few other games like Florida and, something like that, they generally, they'll put 40 to 50,000 in the stadium. And that's about it. But it's a 70,000 seat stadium plus, and so it comes off looking kind of bad. If they had their own stadium probably on campus, it'd probably look a lot better. When they had the Orange Bowl, when they were playing there, of course they had a lot better teams when they were playing there. But a little closer to campus, a little easier to fill, and a little easier logistic-wise.
Am I being a holier-than-thou Georgia Tech person by saying that there's a lot of similarities between Miami Cane fans and Raider fans in the NFL?
Well, yeah.
In Coral Gables between the sidewalk fan and the so-called alumni who.
Yeah, you can definitely. I tell you, I've been down there to quite a few games at Sun Life Stadium or whatever they're calling it now. I think it's actually been renamed something else.
It's Hard Rock Casino.
Hard Rock Casino. And lead that category, and they will make their way well into the top 20 if they manage to pull the upset this weekend. So, no worries about being ranked or being overlooked at this point. You take care of business, you'll get into the polls.
Well, a big game for Tech, a big game for Miami. Of course, Miami's got their sights set on national championship potential this year. And if the Jackets can pull off a win against Miami and beat Clemson and things go well, beat a Georgia team that's looking halfway decent, the national championship certainly something that the Jackets could be focused in on if things go their way.
For that Atlantic title under their belts with a win, so they've got Clemson left, but that's
at home,
and that's not going to be an easy game for either team. Clemson, their defense, wow. Now their offense has been looking a little more pedestrian lately, and Kelly Bryant, I believe, has now gotten taken some hits and gotten a little more injury, but all in all, I think. Right now, their offense looks a little more beatable than it did maybe a few weeks ago.
All right, well, we'll take a break here on BuzzLine. When we come back from Buffalo's, where there's 14 Metro Atlanta locations of Buffalo's Cafe, we'll continue talking ACC and more, as the Jackets did have that open week this past week, but they got to get back to work this week against the Miami Hurricanes.
He's a defensive lineman.
Okay. This is from yesterday?
Yeah. I can give you some from today if you want.
No, that's all right.
I just literally, Rod's sending them to me right now.
No, that's okay. And we are back on BuzzLine talking Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket Athletics, and we're at Buffalo's Cafe Cumming. This is a Georgia Tech friendly atmosphere, and you can come in anytime wearing your white and gold and say, to hell with Georgia, or Go Jackets, or I'm a rambling wreck from Georgia Tech and a heck of an engineer. And look, you're looking at me funny here.
Yeah.
And they'll just say, right on, buddy. But we want to remind you that this is where we are, Buffalo's Cafe Cumming. And all the great TVs that are available for you to watch Georgia Tech and what other events may be going on, they're waiting on you right here at Buffalo's Cafe. I'm John Rawl with Jonathan Leifheit, the publisher, the czar of GoJackets.com. And the Jackets, of course, coming off an open week where they didn't have a game this past Saturday, but got Miami coming up. Do you know what they did schedule-wise?
Well, yeah, so last week, as part of their off week, they practiced on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Okay.
And then they went more into their typical game prep for this week, a game week, which is, Monday, Tuesday, basically all week, all the way through Thursday. They'll do kind of a walkthrough. But last week, and I can tell you some of the things they focused on, a lot of what they did was some special teams work. We've kind of lamented how the special teams haven't been great on either the return game or the coverage has been spotty. Been a little better lately, but both cases there's been some spots that needed help. So they actually, in lieu of doing kind of the more of the walkthrough oriented type of stuff, they actually did live drills. So they actually went one step further and did some things that worked out pretty well.
Okay. Now I know from years past, Paul Johnson has changed things up on the special teams front for his coaching staff. Some years it seems like they didn't even have a special teams coach. And
yeah, so in the early years of Coach Johnson's tenure, they did not have a special teams coach. They had one particular coach that was kind of usually assigned to one aspect of the special teams, and then they'd have somebody who was interested. They would be more in tune to what's going on with the kickers and whatnot. So they really kind of did it more what I'll call assignments for special teams. That allowed them to have one extra coach for the offensive line. Well, had some issues with that, so Coach Johnson went away from that and actually hired a dedicated special teams coach, had a couple of those folks that kind of came through. We saw a little improvement, and then it kind of went away and went back to kind of, solid but not spectacular.
Yep.
And so he decided he also felt like he needed to get that help back with the offensive line. So they brought in, when the previous coach left, I won't mention how that happened, but under some suspicious circumstances, they brought in Coach West to be kind of a second line coach, and that has paid dividends. I feel like the line play has greatly improved. Generally, special teams have been pretty good. Georgia Tech has been one of the best at blocking kicks in the last 3, 4, 5 years. They've done a great job of that. But for whatever reason this year, the coverage on punts and kickoffs has not been great, and the returns have been kind of so-so. And then, of course, we've documented the struggles that Sean Davis had with the place kicking. I think the only really solid area has been kind of the punter. Presley Harvin done a fantastic job all year. But by and large, we're back to the assistants are each taking their assignment and then kind of going with that. And this week they decided to do some live drills in lieu of just walking through things.
Well, you talk about coverage being a problem. What, in your opinion, after seeing these games in person and going back and watching the film, what's going on the coverage?
Well, you have, it's largely guys that are not staying in their lanes on kickoff coverage. So, you got a guy that's kind of you want to build a shield up around kind of where the runner is and kind of keep him hemmed in. If one guy gets out of the way, guess what happens? Now you have a gap that runner can run through, and when that happens, that results in a bigger return. So that's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is the kicker's got to be able to put the ball where you expect it. You're trying to shield that runner in, but guess what? If you kick it to where you don't expect, now you have it. You've got to regroup on the fly and figure out how to keep that runner hemmed in. And part of the issue has been, they haven't gotten some of the depth and height on the ball, and then the placement has been a little suspect on the kickoffs. So there's that. And then when you go to the punt coverage side, it's really been more about tackling. That 80-yard return that we saw was they had the guy hemmed in. They had everybody in their lane, they didn't make the tackle, and then he ran around him, and then Pitt was able to establish a wall, and that was the end of that.
Okay. Well, of course, as the season goes on and the stakes can get higher with a win over Miami and upcoming against Clemson, every element of the three-prong attack, the offense, defense, special teams, they all three need to be at their best. And hopefully the team will have they would have worked on this special teams miscues during the open week, and all will be ready for Miami and beyond. Well, speaking of Coach Johnson, the staff of GoJackets.com, as they always are, working hard for you, the GoJackets.com subscriber. And if you're not on GoJackets.com, we encourage you to go there right now. They're part of CBS Interactive, CBS Sports Interactive, and check out the incredible work that Jonathan and his compatriots do for Jacket fans all over the world. Y'all got subscribers everywhere, right?
Yeah, I know that we've had some even from over in some Asian countries, folks that are over there, trying to keep up with their sports and keep up with that. Certainly in the Atlanta area we have them, and then all coast to coast within the U.S.
Keeping Tech fans informed from Toccoa to Timbuktu.
Absolutely, and beyond.
And even more, yeah. Even Cedartown.
Yes, even Cedartown.
Yeah, they got the internet thing there, don't they?
Most of the time.
Okay, good. I'm just picking on the Cedartown native. Cedartown Bulldogs?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's an unfortunate mascot, but we'll
maybe
have to
you can
deal
get
with
it changed. Go give them several $1 billion, and they may change their mascot to Buzz.
Yeah, if I had several billion to give, then maybe I'd consider that. So.
Okay, well, you should do that.
Actually, I know they won't change it to the Yellow Jackets.
I didn't say Yellow Jackets. I said Buzz.
Yeah, but their cross-county rivals, Rockmart, is the Yellow Jackets, so they can't actually.
So that's a politically correct county over there.
Absolutely, they are representing both of the major parties in Georgia.
All right, here's Paul Johnson speaking after practice this week, and he's talking about his team. And the first question comes from, you guessed it, Rod McKenzie, GoJackets.com.
You talk about the selection of the new captains.
Yeah, it was. We voted on today, so we got 3 good guys. So, do a good job.
I guess says a lot about Taquan and how quickly he's kind of got his teammates.
Yeah, I think the nature of the position, and Taquan's done a nice job leading. But if you go, that's kind of those guys tend to be, if they're doing a good job, a lot of times. JT was the captain for a while, and it's good for Taquan. In fact, it was really, really close. He only beat Ricky by a couple votes.
Kenny said the other day that Taquan does a really good job of keeping everybody kind of moderated in the huddle. If things aren't going well, he doesn't let them get down on themselves. And is he more of a talker than Justin was? I know.
Oh yeah, Justin wasn't a talker at all. I mean, I'm not in the huddle, but Taquan's more verbal than Justin, more outgoing, personality.
What'd you take away from the Florida State-Miami game?
Good. Both pretty good on defense. It was a heck of a game. I mean, it was a good football game. They both got a lot of good players.
Mark Walton is not going to
ask me about the captains. Ask me about the
Sure that
captains.
they've got a lot of other guys that were highly recruited that'll step in and play. I don't think they'll change a whole lot because he's not playing. But he's a good player. Feel bad for him.
With Mark being there, this is his second season. Obviously, he's only had a couple of recruiting classes. Do they appear significantly different in any way? Faster as a team, slower as a team, bigger as a team?
No.
Allie.
They've always had really
taking
good
care of this area, I think.
It's kind of usual this late in the year to have your first real road trip.
Rebecca, I think. It's either Rebecca or Rachel.
About that. Different.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it feels the same size, and but the way you do it anymore, we go to a hotel on home games, it's not a whole lot different other than getting on an airplane.
What's your health situation? You said last week you hope to have everybody back.
We'll know on Thursday.
Sean Davis, can you just comment a little bit of the progress I imagine he's made from the first game, just what you've seen?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's made a lot of progress from the first game. Still ongoing. It's a work in progress. He kicked the ball well today. They were kicking some.
And that was Georgia Tech head football coach Paul Johnson talking to the media earlier this week. And always a fun time when you get to talk to Coach Johnson. And when that question came in about your health, Coach, I really thought they were talking about Paul Johnson. And as far as we know, he's healthy, right?
Oh, yeah, he's healthy. That's actually there's kind of an ongoing joke in the media. Somebody will ask about, who's injured and who's not for the upcoming game. Well, Coach Johnson doesn't like to give that away until he has to, which is on Thursday, as part of the injury report. So I heard, I believe that was Matt Winklejohn asking about the health of the team, and knowing Coach Johnson and the other 3 reporters who are normally there, Coach Johnson saying they'll release it we'll know on Thursday. It was kind of a funny little inside joke going on there.
And Coach Johnson, to his credit, as far as I know he's a great golfer, so that might be the reason he's in such good shape. He's not had any health issues during his time in Atlanta, has he?
Not at all.
Okay, good for him. So it's just an easy job being the head coach at Georgia Tech.
Apparently so from a health perspective.
Good for him. Good for him. Urban Meyer, remember when he left Florida to just to get out of coaching because he was in such bad health?
Yeah, I think that there was more to that story than.
Well, I mean, obviously the guy ends up being at Ohio State and leads them to a national championship. So
yeah,
I would love to see a Florida-Ohio State game here pretty soon, just for the reason.
As long as it's not in the college football playoff, I'm good with that. Because as far as I'm concerned, I don't want either one of those teams in there.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, one of the things Coach Johnson, we heard him talking earlier in that clip, was captains. What's going on? Why are they having captain selection in October?
So normally what they'll do is nominate captains for each one of the 3 games, or each one of the games, and then about midseason they'll kind of go in and do kind of the permanent captains. And so they held their the final vote for the permanent captains for this team. And you heard them mention Taquan Marshall barely beat out Ricky June for one of those positions. And then the other 2, Lawrence Austin and then also Keyshawn Freeman. So 2 defensive guys also named captain for this team. So not a big surprise, particularly Lawrence Austin has always been a big play guy, vocal leader on defense, and the same is true of Keyshawn Freeman, also a pretty big leader.
Okay, so you said no surprises on this?
Taquan was a tiny bit of a surprise given that he was a first year, but given the nature that he's the quarterback, normally your quarterback is the captain.
Okay. Well, the way each school does captain choice and selection is kind of an interesting story this time of year because sometimes it just doesn't make any sense. I guess in Tech's case, this makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. I didn't see, like I said, it was when they came out, I was like, oh, no surprise. But every now and then, had Ricky June beat out Taquan, which apparently was close, that might have been a mild surprise. But Ricky June was the representative that Georgia Tech set up to ACC Football Media Days, so clearly he's considered to be a leader on the team. So it probably wouldn't have been a huge shock, but that would be about the minor surprise.
This was all voted on by the team.
Absolutely.
Okay, good for that. Democratic process. It's good to see democracy in action.
Absolutely. I always like that.
Okay. I wonder how many other things on the Tech football program get decided in a democratic vote.
Probably quite a few more, but mostly it's a benevolent dictatorship.
Well, that dictatorship works for the most part, so
yeah.
We're happy about that. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we've got audio from a great defensive lineman for the Jackets, and we'll tell you who that is and hear his audio with GoJackets.com, and we get right back to BuzzLine from Buffalo's Cafe Cumming.
Imagine exciting another game in your home state. Any thoughts about that?
I mean, it's not no thoughts, just another game we got to win. I mean, it's not no thoughts, just another game we got to win. Another.
That's me right now.
Pass rush was, and I'd be fine. Same old line.
I got the sun right in my.
Yeah, okay. Slide over here to get a little closer to me if you want.
Yeah, there you go. Got about 5-10 minutes, it'll be gone.
And we're back at Buffalo's Cafe Cumming. A friendly wait staff awaits. We got Allie working today, and Allie's going to be celebrating a big 2-1 this week. And happy birthday to her. And
boy, she's making me feel old.
what are you, 22, 23?
at least.
Okay. By the way, Jonathan Leifheit, with the light shining bright upon him right now. Jonathan Leifheit of GoJackets.com. When you're the publisher of GoJacket, the light shines on you.
The sun always shines upon you.
As long as it has a little bit of a white and gold tint to it.
Yes.
And the sun does have that.
It's definitely golden, I'll say that. It's bright and golden.
All right. Well, I'm John Rawl. Thank you for being a part of GoJackets.com and also here on BuzzLine. We're having a good time talking Georgia Tech. We love talking after games where the Jackets win. Well, this week the Jackets are talking about a win because, well, they didn't play this past week, so we have to rewind to the last game, a great win over UNC. And their season continues to spiral downward.
Yeah, they looked, again, awful against Notre Dame. And, very similar score, 33-10 in this case, after Georgia Tech beat them 33-7. Their injuries have just racked them completely, and they also had a huge loss in the amount of talent drain to the NFL. Lost both of their top running backs, and of course Mitch Trubisky went second in the draft to the Bears. So you add all the injuries, talent drain to the NFL. It's tough road to hoe for them.
Yep. Well, luckily,
and I can't say I feel that sorry for them.
Well, I
by
understand.
the way.
We talked about them last week. In addition to the hell with Georgia, it's the hell with UNC.
Absolutely.
On this show, they've always had a little bit of an attitude, and they're the reigning national champion in basketball. So really, no reason to feel too sorry for those guys.
No, I don't feel sorry for them at all.
And Franklin Street and whatever it is. I had a chance to go up there and spend a couple days in the fall, and it was cold. I tell you, I'm glad I'm in Georgia because North Carolina, and at least the UNC campus, was quite chilly. So was the reception up there. All right, Jonathan, we're going to keep talking about Georgia Tech right now, but we're going to brag on the defense. It's very easy to not give the defense their proper credit because the offense always gets headlines when really no matter what the team is, the offense gets more ink. But with Georgia Tech running what most people consider a slightly different offense, the subject always comes up when you have Georgia Tech on the schedule. But this Georgia Tech defense is doing a darn good job this year.
Yeah, they've had 2 conference games thus far, and they've allowed a total of 24 points between them, 12 points a game. 76 points overall across 4 games. Comes out to be 17 points? I guess that's about 19 points a game. So pretty good anytime you're under 20. And just for what it's worth, Miami has a very heralded defense. They've given up only 69 points, so only a 7-point differential. Miami's played probably one opponent a little tougher, Florida State, but even they're kind of struggling a little bit.
When Ted Roof's squad is out there on the flats playing,
so from my perspective right now, the run scares me a little bit more than the pass does. But they're both looking pretty good compared to what we've seen in a typical year.
Well, funny you should mention Antonio Simmons. We're about to hear from this defensive stud. And why are we hearing from him from GoJackets.com? Why did they catch up with him this week?
Well, I mean, he was the one of the defensive representatives. That they give us 4 players after each practice, and following he happened to be one. And I caught his. I thought his interview was rather interesting in talking about. I mentioned the big offensive line from Miami. He didn't seem quite as impressed with them as I have been.
Well, Antonio, who is going to be going down to his native state of Jacksonville, he's from Jacksonville, Florida, going down to his native state of Florida for this game. He's a big fella, 6'3", 246 pounds, and entering this year is his final year playing for the Jackets. Anything that you've seen through his tenure in Georgia at Georgia Tech that stands out from a game standpoint?
Yeah, the past 2 years, he really came on pretty strong by the end of the year. Last year, I thought he was playing pretty good football, and he's continued to do that this year. And he's had, I think if he doesn't lead the team in sacks, he's very close to leading the team in sacks, and had a lot of good pass rush. He's done a really good job, in my opinion, of setting the edge and then also rushing the quarterback.
Yeah, I think I'm seeing here, if these numbers are up to date, he's had 3 sacks this year.
Yep, that would make sense, and I believe 2 of them came against either Pitt or North Carolina. I'm not sure which game it was. He had 2 sacks in. I think it was Pitt, actually. He played a very good game against Pitt.
He had 32 total tackles in 2016, so a guy that's making quite an impression, and this is his resume. If he can continue to do good for Georgia Tech, then he'll get some attention after his playing career ends in Atlanta and move on to the next level.
No, we hope so. I mean, it's always good to see guys get up there to the NFL. He's been a pretty solid defensive end this year.
All right. Well, here he is, Antonio Simmons, talking this week after practice with GoJackets.com.
I mean, it's not no thoughts. Just another game we got to win. Another division game that we got to win to keep us on top. So that's all I'm focused on, no matter where we play.
What do you see looking at Miami on tape?
I mean, same line from last year. They're not the best line we played, but
You had some success last year against Miami getting the quarterback. I think you had three errors and a sack or something like that. That must give you confidence, I guess, going down there.
I mean, it's the same line as last year, like I said, but I got confidence going in any game. I mean, I feel like I got a lot better from this year than I was last year, and it's the same old line. So I think I'm going to have very great success Saturday. So just got to execute my job, mix up my pass rush moves, and I'll be fine.
Antonio Simmons talking this week, the defensive lineman for Georgia Tech. And, Jonathan, I'll tell you what, when I'm having a bad day, I'm going to get you to find Antonio's phone number. I believe he could get me boosted up and get me through anything.
Yeah, he's quite a confident young man. I'll say that. I found I'm a little concerned about. I hope that some of this doesn't get back to the Miami players, but because I'm sure otherwise they'll be getting. Anytime you can give somebody get a little fired up about, they will. But Antonio certainly confident in how they're going to perform against that Miami offensive line.
He says if the Jackets do what they're supposed to do, they'll come back with a win.
Well, and he's right. I mean, they have to hang on to the ball and stop the run, get some pressure on the quarterback, and I think that'll be the keys for the game.
Well, we hope Antonio's prediction comes true if you love the white and gold as we do here on BuzzLine. We're going to take a break, come back. We'll take a look around the ACC and remind people what a great place Buffalo's Cafe is. Go by and see them. And also we'll tell you a little bit about what's going on at this Buffalo's Cafe in Cumming this week as the Jackets hit the road to Miami. This is BuzzLine from CRM Sports. Stay with us. All right, if you're watching on Facebook Live, if you have a question or comment, we welcome those. Jonathan's here. I know a lot of your GoJackets.com subscribers probably have a question or two, and we're prime time this evening on Tuesday night. No other college football games or NFL for that matter on a Tuesday, so we're taking advantage of Tuesday to be we're front and center across all of NCAA land. We're the only college football thing going on right now.
Are you sure there's not like some low level conference?
Believe
USI?
it or not, they have a game tomorrow in the Sun Belt. Louisiana Lafayette. They'll always be Louisiana Lafayette or USL.
I like to refer to them as ooh la la.
Yeah, that's fine. They're trying to be Louisiana, but I'm sorry they're not. And they're playing somebody in the Sun Belt this week, but that's the Wednesday game. And the Thursday game this week is not that great. There's some good games Friday.
I haven't even looked at the schedule. I'm actually going to be headed to Fort Lauderdale on Thursday morning, and I'll kind of figure it out from there.
Just as long as you show up to pull for the white and gold. What is your game day attire normally on a road game?
Normally it would be some kind of a Georgia Tech either gold or white shirt and shorts, depending on the weather. In this case, however, I'm actually going to be in the press box at the game, so you're really not supposed to wear attire that indicates you're pulling for one team or the other unless you're on staff with the SID. So I will probably wear my gold GoJackets.com shirt, which officially is a neutral, but we all know, of course, naturally what the real color is there. So.
Wow, I wish you had that on today so I could get excited about it.
Yeah, I wore it I wore it the last 2 weeks.
I like that shirt.
I will probably wear the white version that I have since it's a little more neutral, and since we're going to an away Coliseum, I usually try to blend in a little bit more, but I have a white version as well as a gold version.
Wow, well that's pretty neat.
Yeah,
I'm glad we asked these important questions.
Yeah,
but if you have another question that's slightly more important than that, and you want Jonathan to answer it, chime away on Facebook Live. We also have a phone number. You can call us anytime at 803-816-1170, and we'll get our question asked of Mr. Leifheit when we do our show each and every week here at Buffalo's Cafe in Cumming. All right, we're going to start back now on the real radio version. We are back. I'm John Rawl with GoJackets.com publisher Jonathan Leifheit, and we're at Buffalo's Cafe, Cumming, just off of Highway 400. This is the exit 14 off of Georgia 400 in Cumming. And this Buffalo's Cafe has 27 televisions. 27. Count them up. 1, 2, 3. I don't need to keep counting. Unbelievable lineup of televisions and games. And this weekend, Georgia Tech will be front and center at this Buffalo's Cafe in Cumming, as it will be the watch party for the Miami game as the Jackets go down to Miami Gardens to face off against the Hurricanes. And the West Lanier Georgia Tech Network is hosting this watch party here at Buffalo's Cafe in Cumming, and we can't wait for that game. This is actually the first road game.
The first true road game. We had the Tennessee game, which was not a home game, but it wasn't really a road game either, and it was just down the road. So, yep, the UCF game, Central Florida, was canceled due to the hurricane. So, yep, first real road game, finally. It's amazing that we can get to the 14th of October and Georgia Tech is finally playing a road game.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like not having road games, frankly, but, normally they try to balance it out in the NCAA, and the Jackets are going to have to play the road here this week against Miami. So come on out just before the kickoff. We expect you here, and the tip time now is what time?
It is a 3:30 kickoff.
3:30 Eastern. So make sure you got your seat right here at Buffalo's Cafe in Cumming. Allie will take care of you, right? Of course. That's the birthday girl we told you about. We want you here for the big game as Georgia Tech and Miami. This is a huge game. I looked at the schedule for games this week, and I would consider this game this weekend maybe the biggest game on the NCAA schedule.
It's one of the bigger ones. I think there's a couple others that are out there as well, but by and large, this would be potentially one of the more important games among two better teams as opposed to having just the one.
To show you how big this weekend possibly could have been or isn't, really is the better way to say it. ESPN College Game Day. Are they going to be at Miami? No.
Nope.
I know where they're going to be. Do you know where they're going to be?
I believe they're going to be up in the Northeast somewhere. I think in Washington, D.C. Is that right? Or was it
not too far off? They're going to be in Harrisonburg, Virginia.
I knew it was close there.
Where the defending FCS national champion James Madison Dukes are going to be hosting Villanova. So, FCS football getting a little love. But if that's the best ESPN could come up with, then, yeah, I would say the Miami-Georgia Tech game was the next best selection that they could have picked for this weekend. Probably not the best of places to go do College Game Day Miami, if I had to guess.
Yeah, with them being off campus, it does make it a little harder, and that's not a great place in terms of accessibility for a game day type of setup. So it doesn't surprise me. It'll probably take a good bit for them to have a pretty big matchup with somebody before game day will go down to Miami at this point.
Yeah.
So I don't think they've been there in quite a while. And I was just doing a quick perusal down the schedule, John, and I believe that the Georgia Tech-Miami game is the closest thing to two ranked teams that we have in everything, because Miami's ranked number 11, and to our point, Georgia Tech is 26th.
25.5.
25 and just the closest thing. So that would be the closest thing that anybody could come up with to two ranked opponents playing on this weekend. So definitely a good game.
Yeah, and since we don't discuss betting, I don't know what to tell people on that front. But it's going to be a good game, and we're looking forward to it. Now, let's kind of look around the ACC because, hey, the Jackets have a chance this year to get back to the championship game, which is it going to be back in Charlotte this year?
It is back in Charlotte. They did move it back, which is where it should be.
It should be, but the ACC got a little political the last year or so, and
I hate it when politics invades my sports. I'll just say that.
Well, kind of crazy since the ACC's in North Carolina. I mean, it's based in North Carolina, and many people would say it's run by the state of North Carolina.
It used to be, for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe not as much now, but
for them to hurt themselves last year with their decision to do that. Did Georgia Tech benefit from any of that?
No, not really.
They didn't have any championships moved to?
I believe there was a championship that was moved to I think maybe the tennis I don't remember which
Something
one
was played up in Rome.
Right, they were played at Berry College, and I think it might have been the tennis or cross country or something like that. That would have been the closest thing, I think, to Georgia Tech benefiting. I think that was the only one moved to the state of Georgia.
Wow, just right outside of Cedartown, they had an ACC championship.
Yeah, absolutely, right up the road, about 20 miles away.
Hey, I had a good chance to go through Floyd County earlier this year, and great part of the world up there. All right, so let's talk a little ACC action. We mentioned Clemson, NC State looking good on the Atlantic side of things. Clemson's quarterback, Bryant's had some ankle issues.
Yeah, I believe that's what's going on, at least lower leg. He's certainly starting to, I think he's getting dinged up a little bit, that happens during the course of a season and whatnot, and so it's affected his mobility. Boston College was able to really hold Clemson in check pretty well for 3 quarters. I think they allowed only 7 points before Clemson kind of exploded in the fourth quarter.
All right, NC State, we mentioned them a little bit. They're having a good season other than a slip-up in Week 1, oddly enough, at Bank of America Stadium in the Queen City of Charlotte, where they fell to South Carolina. They're looking really good. Yeah,
I mean, as I mentioned, they've taken care of 2 of the 3 contenders, the perceived contenders for the Atlantic. Clemson's the only one left on their list, and to your point, they have them at home.
All right, and looking at the rest of the Atlantic side, Louisville, Wake Forest are both 1 and 2, along with FSU in conference play. And Boston College, they're just having a hard time over there on that side of the ledger. And they used to be really good when they were in the Big East. They're still having some issues.
Well, they had a good year in 2007 as well. They actually made it to the title game against Virginia Tech.
Okay.
That was when Matt Ryan was their quarterback. They had a very good team. Yeah, you might have heard of him.
Yeah. All right, now the division that matters, the Coastal Division, we mentioned this weekend really is a battle for who's going to step out in front of the Coastal side with Miami and Georgia Tech. The winner of that will have the upper leg. Of course, Virginia's got something to say. How about those Who's?
Yeah, I mean, they came out and beat Duke last weekend, 28-21. Kind of a surprise. I think most people expected Virginia to be, kind of a run-of-the-mill, maybe even the worst team in the Coastal. And right now, that seems to be a battle between Pitt and North Carolina, and Virginia has moved themselves up a notch. I think at the end of the day, right now, the winner of the Miami-Georgia Tech game and Virginia Tech will probably be your kind of your 3 teams there that are kind of involved in who wins the Coastal. So, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, and Miami. The good news for Georgia Tech is they've got Virginia Tech at home, but they've also got Miami on the road.
And to credit the Who's again, they're 4-1 overall. That's not too bad.
Yeah, as I mentioned, compared to with what we expected out of them, given years past, and last year, that's a lot better. They had a very, very impressive victory up at Boise State. Granted, Boise State is not the Boise State that we've known of old, but still, anytime you can go up to Boise State and win on the Smurf turf, you're in good shape.
All right, so Miami, Georgia Tech, Virginia, right now looking good. The Hokies of Virginia Tech at 1-1 in conference play, and they're still doing well in the polls at 5-1 overall.
Yeah, they've had some good victories. They started the season out with that victory over West Virginia, probably their best victory to date. And then they really played kind of a series of nobodies, and guess what? They took care of business and destroyed them like they should. Then they got kind of their first real test against Clemson, and Clemson handled them pretty soundly.
Anything from that game with the Hokies that can be applicable when the Jackets face them?
It's tough to say, but I think that usually the battle between Bud Foster and Paul Johnson is always fun to watch. I don't think it'll be similar to what you saw between the Clemson offense and the Virginia Tech defense. It'll be more a case of can Georgia Tech contain that Virginia Tech offense. And it's their quarterback. He's a Josh Jackson, a freshman, very impressive. I think their big issue is going to be, do they have enough playmakers to surround him? And I think that's where they'll struggle.
All right, we mentioned Duke fell this past weekend in Charlottesville to the Cavaliers.
Yep.
So they're 1-2 in ACC play. And then 2 teams that have not found a conference win yet, Pitt and North Carolina, 2 teams that have already lost to the Jackets.
Yeah, and they're both awful. So, I don't know what to say about them. North Carolina racked by injuries. Pitt just cannot seem to put anything together. They've struggled pretty much the entire season.
Is this going to be Narducci's final season?
I don't think it'll be his final season, but I think he'll enter 2018 with a really hot seat.
I mean, how big of a priority is for Pitt to be a big contender?
I don't think it's a big priority to be a major contender, but I think it is a priority not to be a cellar dweller. And so, he's had a couple of 8-5 seasons kind of before here, so I think he's in his third season now. They'll probably give him his fourth and probably his fifth year. If the wheels fall off next year, I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a move, but I think they'll give him kind of one kind of a mulligan, as it were.
Okay, hey, golf metaphor. I like that. All right, he is Jonathan Leifheit, and I'm John Rawl. Again, we thank you for tuning us in, whether you're getting us through Facebook Live or on one of our great radio affiliates or on GoJackets.com as well. We'll call time out, come back, and wrap up this week's BuzzLine from Buffalo's Cafe in Cumming. Nothing.
No.
Recruiting, anything going on there?
Nothing new. I don't think there's really anything to talk about there. So, just trying to think what else might be of interest.
We'll get through it. I just want to make sure. I want to talk to you about your posting stuff when the show's over, if I can remember.
Okay.
And welcome back to the final segment of this week's BuzzLine from Buffalo's Cafe. I'm John Rawl with Jonathan Leifheit, who's wearing his very Miami Dolphins, I should say, look here this week.
Well, it was what was clean when I woke up this morning, so, that's what you do. You wear the clean clothes.
Hey, I like it. Very professional, unlike me, who looks like I just rolled out of a homeless shelter. Nothing wrong with homeless folks, by the way. Take care of them when you get a chance. All right, Jonathan, the Jackets had an open week this past weekend and now getting back into play against Miami, a very good Miami program sitting at number 11 in the AP poll. Any concerns of having this open week going into this game? Do you expect any sluggishness?
No, probably not. The only thing I'd be concerned about is maybe a little bit around timing. I don't necessarily know the Jackets have kind of fully got their, the whole rhythm and whatnot of the option completely down. So if they do come out, it wouldn't surprise me to see them be a little off on the first quarter, but they'll get into rhythm pretty quickly.
And again, this is the Jackets going down there to face the Hurricanes under their second-year head coach, Mark Richt. The first time the Jackets have faced off against Richt down there.
Yep.
And I mentioned it last week. I'm not trying to give too much praise to Miami, but let's say they win this weekend and they go on and they have a wonderful season. I mentioned something to the fact, wouldn't it be funny to see Miami have such a great year and their coach was fired in Athens 2 years ago, and one of our Facebook Live followers said, yeah, wouldn't it be funny if Miami beat Georgia in the national championship game?
No, I wouldn't find that funny at all, actually. I would probably not be happy at all if Georgia even made it that far, because as far as I'm concerned, I want them to lose now, lose hard, and lose forever.
Well, I understand. I'm just telling you what one of our Facebook fans said.
So, no, it would not be funny.
But it is somewhat ironic that they made the coaching change in Miami. I don't think Miami's going to win this week, so it won't even matter. But if it were to happen, it would be somewhat ironic.
Ironic, yes. Funny, no.
Okay. That's why we have you on the show, to clear the air and tell us how it really is. As Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story.
There you go.
So, okay, let's talk a little Miami defense and Georgia Tech's option offense. Do you think they're going to be ready?
Yeah, they'll be ready, and they played Tech okay last year. They did a good job. The one thing they did last year was they were able to get two very fortuitous turnovers, both of which they returned for touchdowns on, I believe it was almost back-to-back plays. If it wasn't back-to-back, I think there was one in between it, and that was pretty much the difference. Tech was able to move the ball on them and able to go up and down, and they've done it in years past. So I don't necessarily think they'll be able to stop them, but Tech has to hold on to the ball. They have to find a way to keep that ball away from the Miami defense, because that's what killed them last year. When they've done well, go back to 2014, that was a year where Tech held on to the ball and beat them 28-17. Look at 2015. I think they fumbled it like 9 times or 7 times or some ridiculous amount. and guess what? Miami walked away with the game. Last year, those 2 turnovers were absolutely the difference in the game. Those 2 plays were the difference in the game. So Tech has to find a way to hang on to the ball against that Miami defense. And I think they'll find some success. I mentioned Florida State had a good bit of success running up the gut, and that has really been kind of the strength of this offense this year for Georgia Tech.
Taquan Marshall under center for the Jackets. How comfortable are you with him throwing the ball?
I'm pretty comfortable. I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him not airmail the ball. He's overthrown a few players. I'd like to maybe see him work on his mechanics a little bit. It seemed like he may be throwing off his back foot a little bit. But I'm pretty comfortable. I saw some pretty good throws out there on various times. He just needs to get a little more consistent in what he does and stepping into the throw and making sure that he doesn't airmail it over his receiver.
Is the Jacket offense, from a passing standpoint, a little bit better this year versus 2016?
Well, I think Justin Thomas was a fantastic thrower. So I would probably say not necessarily at this point. I think they're stronger up the middle, and that's more a testament to Parker Braun, Shamir Devine, Will Bryan, and Kenny Cooper being a year older and a year more experienced. So I think they're just a little stronger, kind of in the power running game, and probably they do well on the pass blocking, but I think we've got to get some. Taquan's got to hit some of those plays when they're available, and he's missed on a couple of pretty big gainers, and got to get a little more consistency there.
Well, as we heard earlier, if the Jackets do what they're supposed to do and no mistakes, this will be a white and gold win at Hard Rock Casino Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida. Jonathan, Jackets going to do it?
Well, that's why I'm going, is to watch them do that.
You're not going all the way down there to come back as a big loser.
That's right.
All right, well, we encourage everybody to follow Jonathan's writing at GoJackets.com. You'll be blogging.
Of course, I do write some things. We usually do a post-game player of the game for offense, defense, and special teams. And then I usually pull out some things that I noticed during the course of the game and do a little post-game rambling on. Okay, so if you want to know what's going on, he is the source. Jonathan Leifheit, GoJackets.com. We want to thank our host here at Buffalo's Cafe, Cumming, for being so wonderful to us, always rolling out the white and gold carpet for us at Buffalo's. And we'll be back here next week with more Georgia Tech sports talk and get you ready for the next game on the schedule, which I think is Wake Forest, right? And believe it or not, John, we have us an evening game, 7 or 7:30 p.m. kickoff. I am so excited to finally get away from a nooner. Okay. Well, now we know how you truly feel. Yep. So we'll be back to talk Wake and look back at the Miami game on next week's BuzzLine. Thank you all for tuning us in. And, Jonathan, what is the good word, sir? To hell with Georgia, and go Jackets.